Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Professor.
Good afternoon.
Okay, so your exam grade should be out at the end of the week or early next week. So your lab instructor might go over the exam solution with you. Okay. So before the exam, we talk about writing functions, right? So we know every functions has a title line in a block, and the way we will write the title line is we will specify the result type, and every function have a function name, and then we will have the input specification. And for the input specification, right, the way we define that is like how we declare a variable, right? And those variable, we call it parameter when we code the function. Now, if you remember that when we use the function, when we call a function, we call the input argument, right? So when we call the function, we will use the term parameter to refer to the input. And when we use the function, when you call the function, we will use the argument to call the input. So just by how we call the input, you will know we are using the function or we are writing the function. Okay, so they both referring to the input. Okay, let's look at some example. So let's say you want to make a qubit function. Which will calculate x to the third power. How do we write this function?
First, you have to decide if you want to return int or double.
Okay, so let's say we only take the integer input.
So then you're going to return an int.
Okay, so we have an int. Then what? So how would the title line look like? So we have int. Okay, I see people put in the chat. So we have int, and then we have the function name that's called a cube. And for the input, we would take an integer input and we can call it x. Now we will have the block of code. So when we run the qubit function, you want to return x cubed, which you want to return x times x times x. So you can just return x times x times x. Any questions here? Okay, I see people asking for the math equation. Do you need to use a math library? No, because for this question, it's asking you to write your own function. Okay, so let's say we will write the cube function. So it will return us x times x times x, which is the x cubed. Now let's say in the mean function, we want to print out we can have cube 1 plus cube 2 plus cube 3. So here, if we want to bring out so if you look at here, since we want to see out the cube 1 plus cube 2 plus cube 3, it will calculate, right? So the 1 cube will give you 1, 2 cube will give you 8, and then 3 cube will give you 27. So what it does is it will print out 1 plus 8 plus 27, which we will expect a 36. Right, so let's compile it. Right, so we will see we get output 36. Any questions here?
Can I see the code again, please?
It's here.
Oh.
Right, it's the same code. So let's look at next example. Let's say you want to print a max function. Which if you return the max of, let's say, 5 and 7, it will expect an output of 7. So the max function, it will print out the maximum value of your 2 input.
Professor, quick question. When will our test grades be out?
End of the week or early next week.
Okay.
What did you say? Did you say there's a test?
No, the test that we
The
just
results
took.
are coming end of the week.
Professor?
Mhm.
Can you tell me what the max function does again? Sorry.
So it will give you the larger value of the 2. So if you look at it, we have an input 5 and 7. So it will print out the 7.
Thank you.
So if you want to have, let's say you want to do fill more, or you want to see out, let's say, 45 and 39. Then you will expect an output of 45.
Can you put decimals in there? Or
No, we will use the we will use the integer input. Now, if you want to use decimal, it's also fine. Then it will just change the you know what? Let's make it decimal. So let's say you have 45.9 and then 39.1. Then you will expect the answer to be 45.9. So how do we write the function? And I see people asking, what library is the max function? You write in there yourself, right? The question is asked you to write the max function. So how do we write this function?
It returns an int.
Does it return int?
Oh yeah, okay, double.
It return a double, right? So since we changed the question to double, so it will return a double, and this function has a name max, and will take in 2 input and both double type. So you can have double x and double y. Now, what would the code look like?
An if else statement.
Okay, so we can have if else statement. So we can have if do we need to create a new double? Okay, so I see. So okay, I see people have if x is greater than y, then x is greater, then we'll return the x value. Else, we will return the y value. Right, so you just compare the number. So here we will have double max function, and then we will have the double x, double y. And then we'll have the if statement. If x is greater than y, we will return x. Else, we will return the y. Okay, so if you check here, we will expect the answer to be 7 and 45.9.
Doesn't the function we create have to be before we put the int main?
Yes, so we have it here.
All right.
Okay, so we have the output 7 and then 45.9 as what we expected. Any questions here? Now let's say you want to write a say hello function, which it will work like the following. So it will, so when you compile the program, it will ask you who are you, and then you will input your name, and then it will run the say hello function to the user. Now what it does here, it will, so what this function does is it will print to screen hello, and then whatever your name. So let's say your user is, let's say you give an input Alex, then it will say hello Alex.
Hello.
Okay, so how do we write this function?
See out user.
You need to write the function. Okay, so you need to write the say hello function. Okay, I see people have the title line as string hello. Do we need to return anything here, or you just print it to the screen? Remember, whatever the value, like when you run the function, it will replace the function as the result.
It would be void, right?
So it will be void, right? Because you don't need to return anything. You need to print a message to the screen. Right? You are printing a message to the screen. But you don't need to return the string here, because if you return a string here, then you are not printing the string. Right? Because you are printing a message when you're using the cout command. So if you just return a string here, you will not print this message out. So what this function does, this function, when you compile, right, when you get into the function, it will run this it will print this message, but you don't need to return anything to this function. Okay, so now we need to write the say hello function. And since we don't need to print anything out, then we can use the void type. So we'll start with void. and then with the function name say hello. And then the user is a string, right? So we'll have string, and then we would take an input of a name. Then you will see out hello with a space followed by the name. And then you will return. Or you don't need to return anything since your return type is void. So void means return nothing. Right? Void means nothing. Okay, I see people say, then could you leave off the return? Technically, yes, because you are not return anything, but it's good to leave it in so you know when or where does the program end. Now, if your program like compile from top to bottom, then if you leave out the return once you finish everything in your body, then it will terminate there. Now there might be some scenario, right? You might do like you might get into a loop, or you might do a decision where you might want to terminate your program earlier, right? Then you will want to use the return command. Then you know you will finish the function. So technically speaking, yes, you could leave out the return, but it's always good to leave it so you know when does your function end. So even we have the void type, you should still have the return there at the end. Okay, so now if we compile it, and then he will say, who are you? And let's put Alex, and he will say, hello, Alex. I see people asking, do we always write the function before main function? For our class, yes.
Always write the what?
The function before the main function.
What, the using namespace? Well, that's a header. No, what are you talking about?
The function, right? If you look at the function where we write the function, that we write that before our main function.
Oh, okay.
Can't we use like a prototype and then put the function after main?
Okay, yeah. So in the later course, like for the advanced C++ class or the like 211, you will see like you don't always need to write the function before main, but for our class, we will just have put it into the practice to write the function before the main function, so you know you can use it. Again, I see people asking what's the void for. Void, it's when you have a function that you don't want to return anything, right? So normally we have the return type. So this is the type when you return nothing. So you can think of this as nothing. right? So if you look at it, we did not return anything here.
Professor, so if we were to return it, like how would it look if we were to like return it? I don't like really get the difference.
Okay, so if you look at the previous example, right, you want to see out the maximum 5 and 7. Right? So here you will expect this function to return to you a value so you can print it out. So here we have a return type of double. And then here, right, when we do the cube function, we also print that out, and then we have cube 1 plus cube 2 plus cube 3, and then we will add the value. So you will expect that to give you a value, right? You expect that to return their value. So when we write the function, we will have a return type of int. So that means whatever result you get from the function, it will replace with the function. So the cube 1 plus cube 2 plus cube 3 is the same as 1 plus 8 plus 27, because that's what the result give you. And you will use it as a replacement of the function after you run the or call the function. Where here, if you look at our function, right, what it does is it will ask a name, taking the name, and then you will say hello to the user. But if you look at it, we are not printing out this string, but we just run the function. So this function itself, it will print this command to the screen. But you don't need to return anything, right? When you return something, it means it will replace with whatever your function.
All right, thank you.
So if you look at our function here, right, it will print out the command hello Alex, and then you can just return, then move on. So you don't need to replace anything with it.
All right.
Okay, so you can also modify it. So you can say, you can have a function called just say something. So let's say you have say something function, and then you will say to the user, you want to say to the user, hi, which you want it to print hi to the user. Right, so whatever something you have here, you want to say it to the user.
So say hello and say something. These are commands that is recognized by C++.
Yes, you are writing the function. So if you look at it, we can compile it. But when you say hello, you can write any function. Right, so those function, it's not built-in function, it's the function that made by you. So you can run it. So once you write the function, once you create it, you can use it. So that's why it suggests that you should write the function before you have the main function, so you know those functions that you write, you can use it. So let's write the say something function. But again, this is a function, it will print something to the screen, right? You don't need this function to return anything, right? If you want a function to return something, that means you want your result as a replacement of your function when you compile it. But you don't need that to return anything, you just need this function to print something for you. ICP say, can you use name if you did not initialize it? If you did not initialize the variable, then you cannot use it. Right, so you need to declare the variable and then have a value. You need to store it. Okay, I see people say the code says the name. Okay, so notice that there's a difference, right? So we say that when we call a function, we call this argument. So when you compile when you call the function, you need to pass in the arguments. You need to provide the function whatever the input that you required. Now, when you call the function, you need to specify what input you want. So that's what we call the parameter, right? So you need to declare the parameter, right? Define the parameter. Now, when you define the parameter, you can name it whatever you want, because that's how you use it in your block of code here. So this name here referring to the input. So you will, if you look at it, we will see out hello followed by the name, and this name is the input. Where here, when we call the say hello function, we pass in the user. This user is the input. So wherever the user, so user in our question, we will give an input Alex. So that means we will have an Alex inputted to the say hello function. So when you pass in, this name will equals to Alex.
So user initializes string name.
So this user is the input.
Yeah, I mean it's used to like initialize name, right?
Yes. Okay, so here we will have a say something function. So again, say something, you just want to print something to the console. So this is also a void return type, right? Since you don't need to return anything as a replacement of this say something function. And this function is called say something. And then it will take in two string, right? User is a string, right? So you will have a string of name, and then you will have another string called, let's say, something. And then you will have open bracket. Now you will see out, right, wherever something you want to say. And then you will put a space between them, followed by the name. And then you will finish the line. So you can, and then we will finish the program. So we'll just hit return. Since you don't need to return anything, so just return. Now let's add this in. So we have say something function. And then you want to say to the user, hi. And then we will write the say something function. And then we will see out the something followed by a space. And then you will print the name. We will finish here. Okay, so here it asks, who are you? Then let's say we input Alex, we'll have hello Alex and then hi Alex. This hi Alex is from say something. Okay, I see people asking, so the parameter are just a series of possible value the function will take in that specific order. Yes. So wherever the input, if you have more than one input, when we call the function, you will read in the input as how you defined it. Any other questions? I see people asking, so the returning a value is not the same as printing something. No. Return something, right? When you have a function that returns something, then it will have the result as a replacement of where you call the function. Where when you print, you can print anywhere. You can print in the main function, you can print inside of your the function you wrote. So wherever you have the cout, when you print something, you will see the message or wherever you are printing in the console. When you return something, when you run the function, you don't necessarily see the value. Right. So if we go back to the first question, I believe is let's look at the first example. Right, so for the first example, we are returning the x cube. Right, so let's say I also print the x cube. Right, so if we just return the x cube, if you remember when we compile it, it will just return as 36. It don't print the value for us. But if you write a cout function here, if you want to print out the x cube, in its own line, then when we run that, right, so let me compile it. So if you look at it, right, when we're trying to see out cube one, right, so it will go to the function, compile the one cube for you, right? So when you compile it, it will run out the one cube, so it will print out one, and then it will return the value here. So it will replace this cube one with wherever the return value. So it will replace it with a one. Now it will add this value to a cube two. So what's cube two? So it will go into the function, and we go into the function, it will compile the code there. So it will print out the 2 cube, which is 8, and then it will return the value to wherever you call it. So that's the cube 2 here. So you will replace this value with the 8. Now you have 1 plus 8, and then you will add a cube 3. What's cube 3? You will go to a function, it will print out 2 cube, right? You will see out 2 cube, and then it will return 2 cube, or you will return 3 cube here. So it will return 27 here. Right, so you print out 3 cubes, so that's 27, and then it will return the 27 to the value here. And then in your main function, you are computing 1 plus 8 plus 27. That's how you get the 36 here. Any questions here? I see people asking, will the main function still work without the void block? What do you mean without the void block? From where? Okay, I see people asking, will the function work without using the void say hello function? Then how do you want to fix it? What do you want to use instead? Okay, so if you didn't write the function, if you didn't write this function at all, just compute the function, you will get a compiler error because when your function goes to say hello function, it cannot find your function because you did not define what's this function. So that's why you need to write the function before the main function. So whatever function you use in your main function, you need to define it. Now, if you are asking, can we use, let's say, other return type instead of the void? If you want to use string, say hello, then let's say you want to return, let's say a string, you want to return extra high, then that's fine. You can compile it, but it won't print the string, right? Because you did not see out the say hello. So even when you return, you will just have like a value there that doing nothing. Good. Any questions here? If not, we will end the class here and I will see everyone Thursday.
Bye, Professor.
Have a nice day.
Bye, Professor.